Truth, lies, shenanigans.
All right, I'm up. I'm up. So I'm trolling the news articles, and I found something on Governor Gavin Newsom joining Truth Social so he could troll Donald Trump. and I thought it was dumb as hell. So I had a bunch to say about it. And then I came across this gem of an article on the fight for choice, and I had to go with it. So um, of course, we had the decision from the Supreme Court coming up on Roe versus Wade. And you remember the draft summary came out a couple of months ago, seemingly overturning a woman's right to make choices about her body. Well, in Florida, of course, DeSantis passed the law outlawing abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. And of course, as we were talking about earlier, the reasoning they give is abortion is against their Christian faith. Well, a Jewish synagogue in South Florida has decided to sue the state, claiming that the anti choice law violates its religious freedom and conflicts with one of the tenets of the Jewish faith that permits abortion if necessary to protect the health, mental, or physical well being of the woman. They said that the law is unconstitutionally vague and prohibits Jewish women from practicing their faith free from government intrusion and violates their privacy rights and their religious freedoms. So basically, it's a bit of their own medicine. So, my question, do you think this tactic will actually work? Or is our country just going to be half the country going to be banning abortions? I'll start with Robbie on this.
All right. I really hope that it will work because as I was diving into a couple of different articles, I came to find that this isn't just a tenet in the Jewish faith and Judaism, that there are several offshoots of Christianity that are accepting of abortion with or without limits. For example, the Episcopalians, Evangelical Lutherans, United Methodists, Presbyterians, Reformed Judaism, Unitarians, United Church of Christ. So there are others out there. And then if you don't have any faith-based beliefs, well, I still have my values. I still have my freedoms. Why should it have to be up to somebody else's imaginary friend?
A small group of
I'd say
people.
invisible friend, right? The
Okay,
Lord is
invisible.
right. That's just wrong. I
Are,
hate
are we calling? Are we saying God? Is that what
I
invisible
said
friend?
invisible friends,
Okay.
whatever your flavor is, man,
All right.
whatever your flavor
Okay. All
is.
right. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, like many of those who do support pro-life legislation make no secret about their religious convictions, and they often cite the religious reasons for their stance. And this is great when it fits the Christian freedom of religion narrative. So, be careful what you wish for and be careful what you use to support your legal convictions. Because if you're citing religious reasons to oppose abortion, then you allow for somebody else's religious freedom
Hmm.
that would allow for abortions. So you can't have it both ways. And if this does land, if this does stick, I think you're going to see a huge conversion to Judaism, and Christians are going to lose their freaking minds. But it's to me, it's not so bad because if you look at the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism has the original playbook. They do.
Mm, they
They
do.
do. I
They
see
do.
a lot of
People keep forgetting that. People
Yeah.
keep forgetting that. You forget that Jesus was a Jew.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Christianity is Judaism plus one. And then Islam is Christianity plus one. So, you got to keep this in context, people. It's all the same stuff.
Real quick, Lizzie has some comments. Real quick before we get to Dr. J and Gianni. If we are going solely on religious beliefs, where is the smoke from Christian and the religious right for Nick Cannon? Okay, Future and all of the other men frivolously spreading their seed out there. No respect for religious chastity, safe sex, or the idea of family at all. Similar to what we were talking about earlier, the hypocrites. And Elizabeth says, Liz E says, then don't have an abortion. Simple concept. Toya Blakely, are these married folks cheating on or even divorcing their spouses? They are seriously selective about how these beliefs get applied. And Mike Winter says, we Episcopalians ain't all into the Catholic Church version of Christianity, of course. Henry VIII needed yet another wife. Dr. J, what are
You
your
get a
thoughts?
kingmaker.
Yeah,
I mean, it definitely is going to put them into a conundrum because then it starts to say, well, whose religion gets more favor?
exactly.
Because at one hand you're always screaming about religious rights, but you're not really screaming religious rights. You're screaming my religion rights,
Mhm.
not everyone's religious rights. So in looking at the covenants and what it says, you know, it is an interesting. I didn't know that part about the
I didn't either.
Judaism faith, but it's an interesting thing, and it's just gonna be like, hey, it's gonna force these people into a corner. Like, you talk about religious rights, now this religion is saying what you're talking about is in violation of their rights. So what are we gonna see? I think they're going to try to find other ways to just say, well, that's not important, and try to continue
Yeah.
on. The question becomes is, will the law go ahead and do what it's supposed to do and read the law, not read the religion?
I'm concerned that, of course, because the Supreme Court is potentially the ones who are potentially, I'll say potentially, since we don't know until they actually do it, overturning Roe v. Wade. That even if this particular thing makes it to the Supreme Court, their conservative court, they probably, like you said, don't care. But I wanted to point out, it was important. So they said the law is unconstitutionally vague and prohibits women from practicing their faith. But they also said, and this was important to me, that um, the tenet permits abortion if necessary to protect the health, mental, or physical well-being of the woman. I like
Yeah.
that. I mean, and I'm glad that they specify mental well-being because that is important as well. I mean, we can't just say, hey, it does, if they're healthy or if their health is in good, they'll live, then they shouldn't be having an abortion. No, if it's a mental issue too. I mean, their mental health is important as well. Yanni, you have something?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the reason why I unfortunately don't think that this will work is because of that main argument that they say um, to protect the mental and health. I think that that conflicts with there's like an exemption I believe in Florida law that is if the woman is seriously threatened or her life is at risk or if her child has a fatal uh, issue,
Yeah,
then in that way the baby can be aborted. So I
like
think
a
that they'll
genetically
find,
fatal. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think that they'll find little ways to break that down. But who knows? Like if we get enough traction behind it, if enough people know about it, I don't know if this is a popular. I don't know if this is a popular article, but if it gets enough traction, I believe we could fight for it. But it would also convert a lot of people's religion, which is another moral weird thing going on.
What do you mean
Like,
by that?
am I
Mm,
am I just Jewish because I want that freedom? You know what I mean? Like it could kind of
because
give
it
people
reflects your values
But
as a
the thing
person.
is, I mean,
the only
it shouldn't matter why you choose to be of a certain faith. I mean, if I were a staunch evangelical for the majority of my life, and tomorrow I go to a Jewish synagogue and find that those values or that I believe, or if I go to a mosque and I go there and suddenly I find the spirit, then that's my
yeah.
right. I have the right to find the spirit wherever I find the spirit. So if it's because if I become a Jew because I want to have an abortion, it fits my values. Hey, that's
It's valid.
that's
If if
It's
you become
not like
Jewish, if you convert
correct.
to Judaism,
Thank you for correcting me. Thank you for that's the more proper way, the more correct way to say it. If-
I mean, the thing with me is that people, I mean, it's not like you can just, it's not like, changing your voter registration card.
right.
Like, you have classes, you're going to be delving into whatever religion that you choose. And isn't that the whole, I mean, in a way, people do that. I mean, that's the whole point of the people with religion. It aligns with your values, and you have people that have like mind. I mean, there's there's a lot of crying in the United States that the churches are losing parishioners, and they're losing parishioners a lot because of the fact that a lot of these certain religious groups are taking such hard stances, and people are saying, no, that doesn't align with what I believe. So there is a mass exodus going on already. It's not necessarily going to another religion. A lot of people are just becoming agnostic. But, you know, this is happening. And so it's like you're going to just be, standing fast on this ship as it sinks like the Titanic. And I guess you're just going to go down with the ship.
Yes,
Florida,
so.
Texas.
Florida.
Specific.
I'm so worried that DeSantis. I don't know. I'm really worried about the elections in a couple of years. Mike Winter said, "Fix him, Rob."
No, I really think that this strikes a much needed blow against the conservative lawmakers because at the end of the day, these lawmakers are endangering the lives of US citizens by barring them access to safe, clean abortions. And I'm
Mhm.
scared for all of the women of the
Agreed.
United States who will choose to take matters into their own hands rather than be persecuted for pursuing a safe medical option. Because we know that abortions are going to take place
Gonna happen.
regardless if,
Gonna happen.
if it's on the
And
books or not.
I mean, and having a total different view as a parent of a special needs child,
Mm.
and now that my children have, come into this teenagehood, one of the fears that I actually really have is like, what if your special needs child is abused and then a pregnancy results of this? As they said in the Jewish things that the mental health, like there is a whole section of us with special needs children, and some of the real things is that we have to often turn our children over to caregivers or put them in institutions, and we know that things happen to them.
You're
It
talking
is
about
a
rape, right? You're talking about rape
I'm talking
or
about
abuse.
rape and or coercion. I mean, if the child is, if the person, not just the child, but if they're not mentally in that, if they're 21 but they're not mentally 21, they have the capacity of a 5-year-old, they can be easily coerced into things. And, it isn't real concern. I mean, it's, like I seriously have a list of conversations to have with my child's pediatrician because I'm like, he's getting of an age, and there's going to be times when I am not going to be around him, and there are going to be people taking care of him. And my concerns become, what if he's taken advantage of?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
some of those advantages could result in a child. So, what about those of us in that group?
And I want to reiterate one thing. I want to reiterate that this fight is not about no, no, most people are not pro-abortion. Most
No,
people
not at all.
don't want abortions to happen. The most important thing, though, is that that option is there, that I can make that choice if I need to, for whatever reason. If it's mental health, if it's physical health, if it's the health of the child, that option, I need to be allowed to make that option for me and my family. My wife needs to be able to make that option for herself and should not be forced forced into having or doing something that um, they would not want to.
Like, I really wish people would take the emotion out of it. Like,
Yeah,
it is a medical procedure.
right.
It is a medical procedure that is used for various different reasons. Some
Another
of
good
those
point.
reasons can be emotional in that, someone finds themselves pregnant and they don't want to have this child, or they found that their child has a fatal flaw and is not going to survive past birth. Like, and, also too, like, I think about like, I've had know several people who have lost a child in pregnancy, and
Me as well.
to hear that they are forced to continue to carry, like, abortion is quote unquote legal, but there are times when they will sit there and continue to force this person to carry or give birth to a child they
To
know
a
is dead.
stillborn.
That to me is mentally just devastating. Like, you had to go through that and go through all those pain and the hormones and all of that. Like, this is a medical procedure that no one is willy-nilly. I don't know anyone who's just willy-nilly going into
Right.
abortions.
Yeah.
That is another, much like the welfare myth that people are
I
not
won't say
willy
that
nilly going.
now, I will say that there are people out there that just do abortions as an option. But they're few and far between. Most people are making educated choices for themselves, making difficult choices sometimes, because a lot of people don't want to have an abortion, but they have to make that choice for whatever reason. The whole point of this is that they need to be able to make that choice for themselves and not be told. Oh,
I love
right,
Latoya's comment. She said, I'm just tired of everybody thinking that they know what's best for a woman's
right.
body, but the damn woman. Whatever the woman's reason is for having an abortion is that woman's business. Who are you to say she's wrong for making that decision she deems best, as it is her womb? She
Yeah,
and she alone should decide whether or not she reproduces with it. And 100%. Like Neo, I'd like that. I appreciate that you and I are allies, but at the end of the day, you and I don't have a voice in this conversation. We really don't. This is a woman's issue, and male lawmakers need to just keep their damn hands out of this.
100%. All right, let's close it out on that. So, is this truth, lies, or shenanigans?
Truth, lies,
Florida's got
shenanigans.
some shenanigans, but I like what I even think the Jewish church got some shenanigans. I love it. They got some return shenanigans going on. They're giving it back to them. I love it.